Urgent, this is a jackpot for the Ukrainian armed forces. Record losses for the Russians. Our forces have crushed Putin's soldiers along the entire front line. The counteroffensive has exceeded all expectations. The world is giving a standing ovation. Ukrainian troops are liberating the entire region. Ukraine's victory near Zaporizhzhia. The road to the Sea of Azov is open. Next up is Crimea. The tension is at its peak. These are decisive days. Syrskyi has reported impressive news. More on all of this coming up. Watch until the end. Greetings, this is Ukraine Today. I am Andriy Silakov, bringing you the latest events. It is of utmost importance. In the USSR, the course of the war is being changed. The offensive has achieved unprecedented progress and special operations have gone down in history. Ukrainian defenders are tearing up the ground beneath the occupiers' feet. Oleksandr Syrskyi shocked everyone with his news.
For the first time since the Kursk offensive operation, Ukraine's defense forces have regained control over more territory than the enemy was able to capture.
This is a true turning point on the front. There's no point in hiding it anymore. No point at all. According to Syrskyi, Ukrainian soldiers endured a difficult battle through the winter, and during the winter months they inflicted enormous losses on the Russian invaders. But most importantly, the enemy's manpower. Our forces are mowing down the occupiers in droves.
The total losses of the Russian invaders over the 3 winter months amount to about 92,000. 2,850 soldiers killed and wounded, or 1,031 people per day.
The enemy's plans for a rapid conquest of 3 regions at once have faded into oblivion. Hundreds of square kilometers of Ukrainian territory are swiftly returning home. Triumph live on our broadcast. The most territory regained in the past month. The defense forces achieved this on the Zaporizhzhia front, where previously Russia had conducted active offensive operations. And a steady advance.
Not only were they stopped, but part of the territory was also recaptured. In other words, the fact of liberating territories. This is just one stage in halting the enemy's advance and disrupting their strategic plans in this direction. This means not only the fact of liberated territories, but also that the enemy was not allowed to seize new ones. The Russians have been put in the red.
The airborne assault troops have confirmed this near Zaporizhzhia. The occupiers are scattering in all directions and abandoning their positions. HIMARS are operating mercilessly.
At the moment, 9 settlements have been liberated. 3 settlements have been cleared of the enemy in our zone. And right now, work is underway to liberate several more settlements. Military units and subdivisions of the Airborne Assault Group continue active offensive operations in the Alexandrovsk direction, imposing their terms of battle on the enemy.
Now there will be no March breakthrough. Moreover, the occupiers will have to forget about any successes at the front for a long time. Zelensky said this officially.
We have received plans for 2026 and 2027. We understand what they want. We understand that their objectives remain relevant. The occupation of the east of our country, namely the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. They certainly want to continue. The directions toward the Zaporizhzhia region and the Dnipro direction are also difficult for them, but they are eyeing the Odessa region. We see these intentions. But for now, these plans have nothing to do with reality because they cannot accomplish the task. And
all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. All of Ukraine has been waiting for this to bring Donbas and Crimea back home. Reports confirm that the strikes in Izium have become fatal, with the focus of attacks shifting to the very heart of the occupiers' rear. Last week officially became the darkest and most large-scale for the Russian Federation. The geography of the explosions is shocking.
Mariupol and Yalta. Verified strikes on fuel and lubricants depots. Ammunition. Locations and assets of air defense systems. Zaporizhzhia region. Tokmak and the surrounding areas. Almost for the first time under such intense fire. It is here that the highest concentration of rear reserves for offensive and maneuvering attacks along the front line is located. A perfect demonstration of the disruption of Russia's spring operation plans. Donetsk-Makivka agglomeration. The return of danger for Russians after a noticeable calm in 2025. Luhansk agglomeration. Oil depot. And, as with Donetsk, the renewed focus of the Ukrainian armed forces on Russian logistics and military infrastructure.
A sensation. Partisans of Oteju. Shots fired. A sabotage hell on the railway in Luhansk. Relay cabinets were destroyed in different parts of the city. Train operations were completely paralyzed. This is a devastating blow to the supply of the group in the Pokrovsk direction. Warehouses with equipment have come to a standstill. Supply schedules have been disrupted. The occupiers were left without shells at a decisive moment. The occupiers in Crimea are also on edge. Yalta, defeat of the SBC warehouse, a place locally known as Ryptek. After the impact, the force of the detonation wave was such that it shattered windows in distant houses. The Russians set up this warehouse in January 24th. More than 2 years of peaceful storage, and now retribution has caught up with them. The Azov coasts are also relentlessly returning home. At this very moment, Ukraine's defense forces are cutting a bloody path toward Berdyansk. A swarm of killer drones has encircled them in a ring of steel. The fattest targets of the occupiers. There will be no mercy.
One apparently was a hit on the port, another was a hit it seems, but they missed it. And the third, that was the kind of strike that most likely was aimed specifically at hitting the military hospital.
The sky over Berdyansk has turned into a blazing hell. A swarm of drones has unleashed a true apocalypse on the enemy. The roar made your ears ring, and the blast wave blew doors out along with their frames. The glow of the fires, so bright it could be seen from space.
The strike happened around 3 in the morning, sometime around then. Oh, I also want to say that if anyone is interested, write to me. But the situation is very serious. The mountain is completely
Destroyed. There are police there. You won't be able to go anywhere further. Everything is blocked off.
A strike was carried out on the data center. We have information that there was a fire near school number 9. That's right nearby. But we need to clarify whether everything was knocked out.
In occupied Primorsk, there is total chaos. These are the first harbingers of great disaster for the enemy. The Zaporizhzhia region is entering a mode of ruthless liberation. Our soldiers have uncovered a secret Russian bunker. Putin's soldiers are reporting to their generals in terror about mysterious events. A single strike on the communications hub, and a deathly silence fell. In
the aftermath of the strike, the communications tower near the bridge was burned down. Operators. Unetka disappeared, but then recovered. The operators Mirtelecom and Primlan are gone, apparently for good. Morse code won't save you anymore. Only carrier pigeons. Russians, pigeons are your future, right here. You'll be advancing on AU.
Kirillivka is frozen in terror. A great spring breakthrough in SU is coming. A direct hit on the occupiers' lair. They hoped to hide out at the resorts, but instead got a full-on fiery shower. A fire of unprecedented scale is destroying everything. An urgent assault cleanup of the territory has begun in the USSR. The results are staggering. The Sea of Azov is already on the horizon. The Russian army is burning under the onslaught of our fighters. Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea. This is now the new reality. The return of Ukrainian land live on air. The Kremlin's generals are in panic, and the front is ablaze from these attacks. The Ukrainian armed forces' counteroffensive in the south is finally reaching the finish line. More on this in just a moment.
The armed forces of Ukraine can no longer be stopped. Our defenders have launched a counteroffensive. In an instant, the Russian front collapsed and the occupiers began to flee, abandoning more and more of the territories they had previously seized.
Overall, in the 2 months of this year, as we can see, there were gains of up to 400 square kilometers in some areas.
Recently, the focus of Ukrainian attacks has shifted to the near-rear areas of the Russians in the occupied territories. The past week has been one of the most significant and successful in terms of the frequency and geography of strikes delivered against the enemy.
The mobilized armed forces of the Russian Federation, their monthly losses are a negative trend, December, January, February. All of this is confirmed.
For example, our aviation and HIMARS MLRS are striking enemy positions, infantry, and the occupiers' equipment in the Alexandrovsk direction. The Russian invading forces have virtually no possibility whatsoever of surviving. Such a colossal and devastating strike. And here is the Zaporizhzhia direction. Here, a Kasta radar was destroyed by Ukrainian drone systems. The geography of strikes during the Ukrainian armed forces counteroffensive is impressive. Our defenders managed to strike not only along the front line, but also behind enemy lines. Recently, Mariupol and Yalta have also been hit. Explosions there do not cease. The Ukrainian armed forces are striking barracks and ammunition depots, as well as air defense positions and equipment.
We know that a little over a month ago, the Commander-in-Chief General Syrskyi said that defense alone would not solve the issues. In this war, and at the very least, it must be active. This means that counterattacks are being carried out in certain areas.
It's turning out to be a hot week for the occupiers in Tokmak and the surrounding areas. The occupied city is under such intense fire for the first time. It was here, before the strikes began, that the largest concentration of Russian rear reserves was gathered for offensives, maneuvering, and attacks along the front line.
The armed forces of Ukraine have concentrated very significant military units in this specific area, primarily consisting of highly trained airborne assault troops, which are considered the elite units of the entire Ukrainian armed forces, with the strategic aim that, starting from the northern direction, they can begin to execute their planned operations. By steadily advancing from the north toward the south, the strategic goal was to successfully get behind the entire Russian group that was operating to the west of the town of Hulyapol.
There is no peace for Putin's army in Crimea either. There, Ukrainian defense forces struck hangars in Yevpatoria, where Russian troops stored and serviced multi-purpose drones, Forepost and Orion. By the way, the Ukrainian armed forces owe such outstanding effectiveness of their strikes, among other things, to Ukrainian partisans who secretly operate in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine as well as in Russia.
Pro-Ukrainian residents, who were the very first to reclaim public space in the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea, began courageously displaying a wide variety of different Ukrainian flags, traditional Ukrainian symbols, and hung bright yellow ribbons. Later on, this brave resistance intensified and became significantly more organized. They began to actively communicate and transmit, as officially confirmed by the resistance movement, critical military coordinates and vital military data.
Their intelligence is invaluable, and each new act of sabotage becomes almost a personal slap in the face for the Kremlin and Putin. In
the town of Klin in the Moscow region, an ATESH agent destroyed a Liven mobile satellite communication system.
And our partisans continue to execute such attacks on a very regular basis.
Members of the movement say that it was precisely their actions and the information they gathered that made it possible. Ukrainian strikes on Crimea. In particular, according to ATESH, it was they who directed the Ukrainian missile strike on the Russian landing ship and submarine, the Minsk and the Rostov-on-Don, as well as the attack on the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet in September 2023. And
now, Ukrainian partisans from the resistance are paralyzing a key railway line in Luhansk, which has dealt a serious blow to the supply of the Pokrovsk grouping of the Russian armed forces.
Currently, the partisans are actively helping our defenders with the spring counteroffensive.
They have united and are carrying out active actions within the partisan movement. Specifically in the military sphere, they conduct sabotage operations at military facilities and also carry out so-called terrorist acts, eliminating occupation officials both in newly occupied territories and in the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea. They are also actively engaged in gathering and transmitting military information.
It is precisely this information that allows the armed forces of Ukraine to deliver precise strikes against enemy groupings.
they say that they provide information about air defense systems, warehouses, military bases, and troop movements, sometimes observing targets for weeks.
In addition, our partisans in Donbass and Crimea are actively preparing the ground for the liberation of the regions seized by Putin. Thanks to their efforts, the occupiers never feel at ease. Not in Donetsk, not in Mariupol, nor anywhere on the territory of the Crimean Peninsula. And with the inevitable advance of the armed forces of Ukraine at the front, the fear among Russians only grows.
Brothers and sisters, the military movement ATESH is preparing to liberate Crimea from the occupiers. We are near Jankoy, waiting for the armed forces of Ukraine. We have created dozens of caches with weapons, explosives, and ammunition. As soon as the armed forces of Ukraine cross the administrative border with Crimea, we will seize administrative buildings and military facilities.
In Russia, there is a real panic. The sky is collapsing like a house of cards. Russian soldiers are shooting down their own planes. Friendly fire strikes mercilessly. The Kremlin is in a stupor, and at sea there is complete defeat. Ukrainian forces have landed a big catch, -5 Moscow ships, and Putin's favorite port has turned into a real trap. The Russian war machine is falling apart at the seams. An epic shot of this fiasco is coming up next.
Shoot down your own so that others are afraid. On the night of March 4th, during another drone attack by the Ukrainian armed forces on the Rostov region, local air defense shot down their own helicopter. Mi-8, was that the helicopter that exploded?
You need to get out of here right now. Yeah, just get the hell out of here immediately. Look out, he is coming right this way.
No, he's not coming this way. He's flying somewhere else.
Friendly fire was confirmed by Z Public as well. The aircraft was damaged during air defense operations against Ukrainian UAVs and the crew was killed.
Unfortunately, as a result of the UAV attack, it was destroyed. Our aerospace forces, eternal memory to the fighter.
Let us recall that at the end of January, Russian air defense shot down a Russian Su-34 fighter jet. The aircraft crew was killed. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Army confirmed the loss of the Russian bird. At that time, Russian war correspondents and public channels unanimously spoke about the crash of the aircraft, and that there was no shoot-down, nor could there have been one.
We lost our Su-34. Both pilots were killed. Neither Snake Island, Odessa, nor Patriot had anything to do with it. The Ukrainians spread it, and ours picked it up.
Not only in the air, but also on the water. Novorossiysk drones damaged 5 Russian armed forces ships. Ukrainian drones damaged warships that were stationed in a protected bay deep inside the harbor.
As a result of the strike, 5 warships that were in the port sustained damage. One of them suffered additional damage. It is likely referring to the minesweeper Valentin Pikul Military Unit 90,921 Novorossiysk. There is also information about damage sustained by the ships Yeysk and Kasimov. It is known that 3 servicemen were killed and 16 wounded.
The port of Novorossiysk is located far away and is well protected on paper. But in reality, Ukrainian drones have already destroyed naval military targets in this port more than once.
There is a large concentration of air defense, various means of destruction, machine guns, and aviation, yet Ukrainian attacks are still able to disable Russian ships. Even if they are not key vessels, with less of a fleet, Russia has fewer opportunities and less power in the Black Sea.
Systematic strikes are being carried out not only on military targets in the USSR, but also on the goose that lays the golden eggs. For the aggressor's budget, off the coast of Libya, the Russian Shadow Fleet's potential tanker, the Arctic Metagas, was attacked by a drone.
The Russian gas tanker that was attacked yesterday by unknown drones in the Mediterranean Sea has suffered serious damage in the engine room and cannot be restored.
The Russian Ministry of Transport called the drone strike on the Russian tanker Arctic Metagas in the Mediterranean Sea an act of international terrorism.
If the tanker is attacked, then it is power. If tankers are attacked, the owners of these vessels suffer enormous losses. Tankers are usually old, between 15 and 25 years, and even a minor hit means they can no longer be used. The tanker owner panics, loses money, and suffers losses. And this should lead him to the logical conclusion: there is no reason to do business with the Russian Federation.
Since the beginning of 2026 alone, Ukrainian defense forces have carried out more than 40 strikes on Russian military targets and oil and gas infrastructure. According to the General Staff, over the past 3 months, Russia has lost 5 aircraft and 2 helicopters. In addition, 3 ships have been destroyed. Another 3 have sustained significant damage. A submarine has also been destroyed. One of the tasks of the Ukrainian armed forces is to minimize Russia's offensive potential, both in the air and at sea.
Devastation on enemy territory could escalate significantly as soon as tomorrow. Ukraine has brought to the ring weapons that Russia could not even dream of. Mega ballistics, next to which American Tomahawks pale in comparison. Missiles headed for Moscow. The bunker dweller won't withstand these strikes. The assembly lines are running in overdrive. 2 deadly predators are ready at once. Reinforcement on all fronts. Ukraine's laser trump card. Our technologies that make the Kremlin's eyes go dark. A flamethrower storm is approaching. Be the first to know.
Ukrainian missiles are flying at Russia's pride, the factories where Iskanders and Oreshniks are produced, as well as at enterprises without which the Russian military-industrial complex cannot function. The elegant Ukrainian flamingos, though, have now officially gone out on their daily hunt for food.
Just this past week, the flamingo has proven that it exists and is real. Russians now truly need to be afraid for their defense industry plants, for their chemical industry, literally for every facility located within a radius of
a total distance of over 2,000 kilometers across the land.
But the Flamingo is a cruise missile, undoubtedly very powerful, but even that was not enough. Now, Ukraine has the Royal Flash, something that can truly be called a breakthrough and a winning combination. A ballistic missile, its name is FP7 and its developer is Firepoint, the same company that produces the Flamingo. They announced the development of ballistic missiles back in September 2025 and now they've shown it in action. According to the technical specifications, the FP7 has a strike range of 200 kilometers, a maximum speed of 1,500 meters per second, and a circular error probable of 14 meters. The warhead payload is...
It weighs exactly 150 kilograms.
If the FP7 goes into mass production for the front lines, it will also create huge problems. Because this means that supporting combat operations against Ukraine at the operational tactical level shifts to a completely different level, downwards for the Russians. Because all logistics hubs, headquarters, any logistics railways, all of that is constantly under threat.
This means that the Russians will have to hide everything within at least a 200-kilometer radius, although playing hide-and-seek won't help. After all, Firepoint is also working on developing the FP9 missile with a range of up to 855 kilometers. This was also announced back in September. And we shouldn't forget about the Flamingo either. In parallel with offensive weapons, Ukraine is also working on the development of defensive air defense systems. A few weeks ago, it became known that Ukraine had created the SNARE laser system, which is used to destroy Russian drones.
This weapon easily fits in the trunk of a car. It makes no sound and emits no light. Not even that familiar red beam from the movies. When, just the other day, a team of Ukrainian soldiers and engineers showed me their prototype, it seemed quite easy to use to me. Almost too simple.
Undoubtedly another breakthrough. But even that is not enough. That is why official Kyiv has announced additional steps to strengthen air defense. According to Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine is now discussing the creation of joint consortia with partners to accelerate the production of anti-ballistic missiles.
We are critically short of PAC-3 type missiles for air defense to protect ourselves from Russian ballistic threats. We also discussed with the President the creation of joint consortia with partners to accelerate the production of anti-ballistic missiles.
At the same time, Kyiv is working on destroying the Russians' offensive capabilities. Fedorov reported the destruction of a communication system that allowed Shaheds to attack northern Ukraine from Belarus.
We managed to eliminate the mesh network. This is a special type of network where each device acts as a relay for others, creating continuous coverage that was used by Shaheds in the north, which has positively impacted the defense capability of Kyiv and central Ukraine.
Fedorov did not share details of the operation. However, it is definitely about the elimination of an object on the territory of Belarus, which means that, most likely, yet another psychological barrier has been crossed. Kyiv can carry out operations on Belarusian territory if the actions of Belarusians pose a threat to Ukraine. And now Lukashenko should consider whether the game is worth the candle.
And what do you think about these events? Write to me in the comments, like the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's even more to come.